Hey everybody, how are you? Today I'm going to talk about the Raudive Diode Detector. Okay, what is the Raudive Diode Detector? Well, it was invented by Constantine Raudive, and Raudive can be considered the father of ITC. And what is ITC? That is instrumental transcommunications. So essentially, if you follow all those paranormal shows, it's essentially EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. It's the idea that you can hear spirits talking through electronics, essentially hearing voices from the beyond. So basically, Raudive, back in 1971, wrote a book. It was called Breakthrough, an amazing experiment in electronic communication with the dead. And this was really the first book that talked about how you can use electronic devices to apparently hear spirits from the beyond through electronic means. He talked about a variety of ways that you could do that, but one device in particular that he talks about is something called the Diode Detector. Now, the idea is the Diode Detector is a device that can be used in place of a mic. Basically, you build this device and you plug it into your recording equipment, and the advantage is that it doesn't capture any ambient noise. Essentially, the way it works is, and I'll explain this in a little bit as part of the video, there's a component called a diode. It's a germanium diode, and the idea is that, that coupled along with an inductor can capture, just basically capture signals, capture sounds, and then not capture the ambient noise around the recorder. And then the idea is you can isolate and sort of hear, spirits talking, right? So that's basically the idea. So how does this work? Well, what I'm going to show you first, or let you listen to, is an actual recording that was released along with the book, and you can hear some samples of what Raudive captured when he was recording.
In another recording, the experimenter remarks that people do not believe in life after death, and a voice answers, "So sind sie." German. That's how they are. The experimenter calls on Vitauds Simane, a friend who had died a short time before the recording was made, and receives the following answer. Danke, gute Morning. Then the friend gives his name, Vitauds Simane.
Okay, so how do you build this? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of the circuit schematics. In the book itself, he had a couple of different schematics that he basically illustrated, and there's some of them were looked at by engineers, and the merits of each were discussed, and I chose one of these to try out. I chose the second one here, and there's been, if you look on the internet, there's a couple of different versions of this. There's another schematic here. I tried this one as well. And then, so essentially, how does it work? Well, the components itself, inside there's essentially a germanium diode and an RF choke or an inductor, and that's basically it. There's a resistor in there, and when you look at the circuitry itself, it's suspiciously close to a crystal radio, right? Because I have a crystal radio kit here, and if you look at this, it's essentially the same idea. There's a There's a diode, that's a diode there on the side. There's a tuning coil, that's the copper there in the center. And so when you look at the parts here, that tuning coil is suspiciously close to what an inductor or a choke would do. So, you can argue that what you're basically hearing with this device is radio signals that you're capturing, like AM, and then you're hearing, periodic signals coming through from the radio. And there's this whole concept of pareidolia, which is that you hear something and then the mind tries to make sense of it, and you hear words that might not be there, right? But I'm willing to suspend disbelief, and I'm willing to give this a shot, try it out. So I built a few prototypes. So I'm going to show you the prototypes that I built. So the first one here, so this is using, it's a very small choke that I bought, and one of the things I did is, since there's really only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 components on here, it was very easy to just create a PCB, have it fabricated, for the sake of testing things out. It's cheap enough. I used Next PCB. So this is one version. Another version here, you can see I have a different type of choke that I'm using here. In this case, this is a ferrite core toroidal type inductor. All the inductors are 500 microhenries. That's what was specified in the schematic. This one, I have one that's sort of an axial version. It does the same thing, right? So, a couple things that were a little bit difficult with the setup. It's amazing that it's only a couple of components. So you would think that this would be, fairly straightforward. Where the difficulty lies is actually connecting it to some type of device to be able to hear basically to use it as a microphone. So, the idea here is that, connect it to your phone and then record from your phone. But when you think about it today, very few phones have headphone jacks, right? So it's an older phone, you might have a headphone jack. The newer phones have USB-C, they have you have to connect a dongle to it. And then, if you connect a dongle, then you need a certain type of audio jack, and then you get into this whole business of TRS versus TRRS. There are different types of jacks. So, it became kind of difficult, surprisingly, to be able to troubleshoot this, because the circuit itself might be working, but then just having the right chain there to get it connected to the phone was a bit difficult. So anyway, ultimately what I wound up doing is, in this case, I used a TRS jack, and then I have an adapter that I use, and I'll show you what that looks like as well. And essentially, it connects into the phone, it splits the USB-C into a headphone out and a microphone in, and then I just connect that using a standard audio cable. So one of the things I did, so here's another version of this. This is my logo here. But the other thought is making this in some type of enclosure so that this way I could bring it places. And you can see in here what I did. Mounted the prototype in an aluminum box, which is necessary because part of this, the construction of this, is to make sure that it's grounded, right? So there's a common ground for all the components, and a nice metal box makes a really good ground. So you can see over here, this is the aerial or the antenna. It's about a 3-inch wire. I just cut a hole in the box. So that's basically it. That's how this is built. So really, the components in here, again, there's just a few. There's a choke. This is the choke. There's a germanium diode. There's a 100K resistor. There's a small capacitor for filtering. And then another resistor, just essentially to provide enough resistance across the audio jack so that your phone can recognize it when it's plugged in. So I'm going to show you a few examples of what it sounds like, and leaving it connected, and what I was able to hear once I had it all hooked up. And one of the things that I noticed is that, it's a type of thing where it's not like you could just connect it, hit go, and then a minute later you've got something interesting to listen to. You really have to just keep it connected and have it recording, keep the input, the volume all the way up, or the mic setting all the way up as high as you can, and essentially just let it run in the background. And then, once you've done that, what I do for testing is essentially I use Lexus Audio Editor on my Mac. That's how I actually actually Lexus Audio Editor on my phone. That's how I can actually get the recording. And then on my Mac, I use Audacity for the editing. So, that's it. This is just a really quick video. I just wanted to show you what this looked like. What I'll probably do is, take this out for a test. I'll bring this out in the field. I'll go to my favorite local haunted, in quotes, location, and we'll see how this sounds. And then what I'll do is I'll report back and create another video. Okay, so that's it, guys. So thank you for watching, and take a look at the notes below to see how this was built, and I'd love to hear, if you try this out, what your experiences are. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon.